Hey everybody, welcome back to class. Today I figured I would do something a little bit different than normal. Today I wanted to show you inside my classroom, which is the classroom of 2020, using the hybrid method with social distancing requirements in place. I wanted to make this as true to life as possible, so none of this is scripted, and I kind of want to see what you think. So, to put a little background on this video, I've been practicing the hybrid social distancing techniques for about 2 months now, give or take. I work in a Title I school where attendance and participation has become a huge issue in 2020. Our enrollment has steadily dwindled after taking a huge chunk at the beginning of the year. I would normally have around 100 students, and I'm down to about 54 of them. As far as participation, I have approximately 20% participation rate at any given time. I have to fight for that amount of participation as well by becoming heavily involved in every one of the students' lives. Every one of my students has the ability to contact me at any given time of the day, every day of the week. I attempt to have conversations with their family members as much as possible and encourage them to contact me as much as possible as well. So I'm an English teacher, and I teach both English language arts and English language development. This means I teach 5 completely different curriculums. I've completely fabricated these curriculums on my own with some input from my mentor teachers as well. I have only 1 year teaching experience, but I'm working on my master's in education in conjunction with my job so I can become a more effective teacher for my students. I want to make sure that I'm doing everything possible for my students to succeed, and that's kind of the main reason I'm making this video. So my goals for this video are to discuss what is working, to show where the problems arise, the train of thought that I'm using while going through the day. Hopefully this encourages a little dialogue that can help me better my pedagogy. So here we go. First things first, I make sure to check in occasionally, especially if they look like they're spacing out.
What are you
Basic
saying?
Teacher 101. The issue of cheating has come up many times in the discussions with my colleagues. How can you prevent a student from cheating when they're at home and they have the entire internet at their fingertips? My answer to this one is to create a project that encourages them to actually use all these resources they could think of. This means there is no such thing as cheating. If there is no such thing as cheating in my class, then there's no more issue.
And I have to make it difficult because Google makes everything easy.
So I look up the words?
Yeah, look up the words. Tell me what they mean. Look up the pictures of the words. You could use anything for this. You could use your friends. You could use the internet. You could use Facebook to help you out with this.
Isn't that cheating?
I made it.
That's the whole point of last year. You didn't let us do that.
So I realized no matter what you do, no matter what I do, kids will try to cheat, right? So what if I made it impossible to cheat? What if I made it so there is no cheating?
Okay.
So I made something. I made a mystery that is so difficult that you could use anything in the world, I don't care what it is, that you can try to figure it out.
Hey, you come
Man, I'm a good teacher. You can thank me later.
Yeah.
You'll probably notice that the masks makes it difficult sometimes to understand what the students are saying. Also, I apologize for some of the audio not being audible. This is due to the fact that I have to closely monitor the feedback of the mics that are being used in the classroom. That means only one mic can be on at a time. My omnidirectional mic misses some of that, and you don't catch what my students are saying.
You doing good, Estella? Good. What about you? They'll say you're doing good? Need help with anything? No?
When I discuss topics with students, I have them join my Zoom meeting. They have their own laptops. In most cases, it is a Chromebook and it's provided by the school and is collected back at the end of the year. Many of these Chromebooks end up missing from students that drop out of school. This is starting to create a scarcity of resources that I'm starting to worry about. The reasons I have them join my Zoom is so we can share screens whenever necessary. This helps us move through content and concepts quicker and more effectively instead of constantly trying to describe something until they understand.
Look at the Zoom since you're still on Zoom.
Although this is a very good English technique, it becomes old very quick. I still implement this kind of description game many times throughout my class.
Antemortem, right?
Antemortem.
Then you got postmortem, MORTEM. And then you have Peri, PERI, mortem. What do they all have in common?
We have mortem.
What do you think mortem means?
Death.
Why?
You'll start to notice one of my students sneezing. Sneezing for allergies has become something that concerns the students. Student 3 is becoming visibly concerned every time that student 2 sneezes. It becomes important to control your composure and to address the student that is concerned with reassuring body language. And it's important to ask the student sneezing
So like I said,
if they are
English,
sick or if they believe it is
English
allergies.
comes from
To discuss the safety measures in place when the students walk into the building, their temperature is taken and their hands are washed. It is
To make it
difficult
mean more and
to
more
see
things.
from this camera angle, but if you could, I have an air purifier running in the middle of the students with a UV technology that aids in catching any airborne pathogens. The students are more than 6 feet apart in all directions, and they're wearing masks at all times.
bless you.
And also they stay seated. I have each student for about 4 hours. They stay in my classroom to limit the risk of contamination in other classrooms. They have water bottles with straws to put under their masks if needed. You will also witness the procedure of cleaning their desk and chair when they leave. Once they leave, a new student can arrive. Their schedules are staggered to limit this 4 student per classroom at any given time. This is not a flawless method, and there are a few noticeable limitations. For instance, later in the video, you'll notice when student 3 passes behind student 1 to pick up the spray bottle to clean her workstation, she passes within 6 feet of the student. The desks are positioned to maximize this distance from the desk to the wall, so student 2 tries to stay next to the wall. I believe it is somewhere around 4 feet. The saving grace for this is that it is over a very short period of time that they remain within this distance. If you look behind all the students, you'll notice a projector turned on and showing a Word document. I increase the font until everyone can read it, and I type out everything that I would normally write on the board. Movement to and from that board would cause me to walk close to the students and constantly break that 6-foot rule. Yet the use of the whiteboard has kind of been integrated heavily into my teaching style. If I need to draw a picture, I actually use the paint program, although I'm very, very bad at it, and most of the time they laugh at me. Before the video was turned on, I actually spent an hour working with that student 3 on grammar concepts that she needed to use to complete her project for quarter 1. She started later in the year than all the other students in the class, so she starts on Unit 1 while the others are on Unit 7. A big reason for this is that she's in the language development class, and skipping around would cause students to lack those essential skills to understand what is going on in the future lessons. I want to describe the strong bonds I've developed over the year with each of these students. This relationship is pivotal to the sustained engagement of the student, especially in a Title I school that specializes in troubled students. Each one of my students treat me as a friend, because I actually am their friend. There is no pretending. Trust is vital to the teacher-student relationship and the success in relation to the student's willingness to persevere in a difficult classroom setting. This particular student joined my boxing club last year, before the pandemic even started. I have the occasional talk with her grandmother, and I'm sure she would even ask me to have a family dinner with him if I didn't tell each one of my students that I am not allowed to do these kinds of things.
Okay, what was it caused by?
But they said circular, so if it was circular,
Oh, okay. How would I get a circular thing on my wrist?
oh well.
Say I was about to beat you, what would you do?
Probably stop you.
Okay, watch this.
Are you gonna beat me?
Yeah.
Do that. Can't do that.
What did you just do?
I flinched.
What did you do with your hands?
I like put them up.
Ah! What would that do if I hit it?
Leave a dent, not a circle.
What if this was circular?
But the angle wouldn't be right. It
Well, what
wouldn't-
if you were on the ground?
The angle would. Okay. If you hit me
Uh-huh.
with that,
Yeah.
if I was on the ground, that means something would have caused me to be on the ground.
So you don't think I could have fought with you and got you on the ground?
Maybe.
Just say. Just say. Okay, continue. What else do you find? Write that down.
This level of joking that you see shows real interaction, where we're both trusting each other and enjoy these grandiose jokes we make. I'll caution that it takes a while to work up to this level of joking and trust with the student.
You watch Criminal Minds?
I watched a few episodes.
Did you like it?
I'm alright with it. Like I like it. I just I wouldn't watch it continuously.
Remind me of Spencer Reed.
Oh yeah.
It's important to admit that you messed up to your students. This gives them confidence in their mistakes. It's been a hurdle in class to get the students to not fear the computer, and they're intimidated at the feedback it gives on their assignments. If this is not done effectively, the student's prone to not even try.
Come.
What is the difference, man, with the second and the third one?
Hold on, wait, you gotta step back a little bit so I get between the second and third one. I did screw up on one of those. And I think that was the one that I screwed up on.
So I could have put either one for that.
Yeah, I'll probably mark you right.
So it's question number 12.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I've been putting these in, you know, and sometimes I screw up.
Yeah, it's okay. No, I was just confused.
As long as you guys point it out, I can fix it though.
Yeah. I was asking him, he told me to come ask you.
Yeah, I tell him I screwed up.
The questions and stresses about COVID are always present in a kid's mind. I find it important to address their questions as honestly as possible. Students can tell if you're lying to them. If I lied to them, it stresses that student-teacher bond that I worked so hard in the beginning to achieve and to build on.
If we ever come back to school, would we have to wear masks again?
Yes.
Would we have to be like 6 feet apart with everybody?
Yep.
But like, how would we do that?
That is a logistical nightmare that we've been working on, and we have ideas on how it would work.
This school is so small.
Yeah. So it would kind of look like this pretty much.
What about lunchtime?
You cannot eat lunch here.
So
So
when would like school end?
12:30ish.
Longer naps?
Yeah.
No. I'm sorry.
Student 3 is noticeably getting more anxious about the sneezing. I choose to not push the matter of her not paying attention to her studies. This is because I know she's about to leave for the day, and I would rather have that effective relationship with the student instead of forcing my authority.
I didn't learn anything.
Continue. Next sentence if you didn't lose anything.
Occasionally, you'll notice that I look down. Not only am I working on this Zoom with my kids and in the classroom, I'm constantly communicating with my students through texts or WhatsApp. These are usually questions or concerns or just check-ins and to make sure everything's okay. This also builds the student-teacher relationship in the long run. If you look at the Zoom screen, you'll see a student just joined me. I make a point to ask the student in my class to turn on her camera so the other student in the class can better interact with her.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. You mind turning on your camera so Miss Melanie can see you? And we could interact and talk.
Now you will notice the cleaning procedure for the workstation by using a spray bottle that has little to no odor yet uses antimicrobial, antibacterial spray in it. You will see me share the screen with both students. What I would like to note about this situation is that I teach 5 different classes, like I said, 2 grades of English language arts and 3 levels of English language development. One of the most difficult yet important concepts for this hybrid method to succeed is to base each class around the same topic. I want to describe what I'm doing to give an example of how this is accomplished. In this classroom, there's currently 3 completely different levels of English students. One is pre-emergent, one is intermediate, and one is a high-achieving 10th grade English student that needs to be challenged. I purposefully put different levels of concepts within the same content. The project for this quarter is to solve a murder mystery. This can be accomplished through just a few of the documents, but I placed some scaffolding concepts that can be modified for each student. For instance, the hidden codes displayed in cursive. Code deciphering is difficult and a high-functioning skill.
So, I haven't given you the ability to figure out that code yet, but it might be a good idea to notice it and write it down each time to try to figure out what could this code be? What could this be? That's kind of one of the last things that I'll give you.
Another level is a vocabulary building. There are many vocabulary words that I teach even the pre-emergent students, as to teach them not to be afraid of those difficult words, such as medical jargon. Once the student can read good enough to effectively picture that situation in their head, I encourage them to use the words around that difficult word so they understand how to build context and be able to guess what that word means as they go. The higher level student still uses those same concepts because I taught them this the year before, and it works to the benefit of the lower level students. The higher level students are actually demonstrating how they got that answer. You can see how they're starting to give each other confidence. All of this is modified per each student, yet all levels are required to make that timeline of the murder.
Reconciled.
Reconciled in September, and that they had been living together since her daughter returned.
Perfect. Okay. So that word that you had a hard time with, reconciled, try to guess what it means, just like you did with the perimortem, postmortem, and antemortem. Just by using like the words around it.
The students really enjoy relating the concepts of what I teach to aspects of their life that they actually care about. This increases the engagement and it lightens the mood, which is constantly on the verge of anxiety and sadness when trying to cope with the events of 2020. Students continue on their own if they must leave. This is another difficult hurdle to get over. How I accomplish this is that I record my boring lectures. Most of them are grammar concepts. I save the class time for the fun stuff, like trying to find that murderer. You will notice student 2 has been quiet this entire time. I've worked with her on her own prior to this recording. She's now on the point where she needs to work on that boring grammar stuff. So she watches my videos at her own pace, which I have transcripts of and that they could translate if they need. She then practices the concepts she learns from those videos on an online worksheet that I build to give immediate feedback. In our next meeting, I'll start class off by going over what she completed and copy and paste the problems that were wrong on the board, and then we'll start working those out together. Then hopefully get to the fun stuff pretty quick. I popcorn read with whatever student I'm with, even if it's just one student. This particular student even expresses that she likes when I read. There's a bit of theater emphasis that I put onto my reading to make it more interesting. I'll admit that this is an exaggeration. It's just to help the students enjoy class just a little bit more.
As an actress, Miss Gina stated that she arrived sometime after 5 p.m. and she and her daughter argued, though she would say only that the subject of their disagreement was a family matter. Uh-oh, dun dun dun.
I make it a point to thank my students every time they come in. It has been very difficult for them. This reinforces that I want them in and that we'll have fun if they do. This is another incentive for them to come in.
Thank you very much for coming in, and I do expect you Monday, right?
Sure.
Yes. Good, 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 good. How many days a week do I get you? How much can I talk you into?
Huh?
How many days a week can I talk you into coming?
We'll see.
I spliced this last clip in because I wanted to demonstrate a few important concepts. I did not notice how close the two students were when I finished my Zoom video. I took a few minutes to discuss social distancing off the camera and gave them some tools to help them keep studying effectively, such as that yardstick and a laser pointer that I don't know if you can see by them or not. Also, notice how they strategically place themselves next to that secondary whiteboard to better demonstrate those mathematical concepts. As I told you, I'm an ELD teacher. Many of my students have limited to no previous knowledge of English. Teaching students with limited English becomes extremely difficult, especially when trying to transcend those barriers such as technology that they've never been exposed to. This means that there are times where my limited vocabulary in their language causes me to not be able to walk them through a procedure or a difficult concept no matter how well versed I am in that topic. I've started to implement peer tutoring. You notice that student 4 walks in. The truth is that this is not my student. This is a tutor that my school hired to help. I want to highlight how amazing of a resource this tutor is. Student 2 speaks multiple languages. One of them is Kirundi. If I was to rate how well I speak Kirundi on a scale of 1 to 10, it would be a 0. I have been communicating with student 2 through French, another language that she knows, when she first joined me. She has made remarkable progress in English, and I have fairly strong dialogues with her on a daily basis. But there are many gaps that cause her to fall behind. Luckily, she is one of the most determined students I know, and we have gotten through some very frustrating days together. Math is one of those concepts, and I'm not able to help her very well with it. I instructed the tutor to help her with Algebra 2 concepts. They communicated through Kirundi, even though it wasn't necessarily their first language. So this video might be only a condensed hour, but my day is far from over. I get my first students between 7:30 and 8 a.m., depending on when they can make it. My last student doesn't leave until about 3:30. So let's recap and go over some of the greater difficulties I'm having. To discuss what is working, my engagement with the students and the accommodations or modifications I make for each student is allowing them to flourish and make progress at a much quicker rate than achieved the year prior. Making the lectures available in video form has created a self-paced environment where the students desire to keep up with their peers. This is in part due to keeping the fun stuff for the Zoom classes. The videos also allow them to focus as much time as they need on that hard stuff. Building strong bonds with the students is the most difficult first step. It takes over a year to build that bond with some of my students, and some of them have denied building bonds even to this day. Unfortunately, this means the students do not complete much of any work until they build those bonds. But once you do build those bonds, it creates an environment that everyone can be comfortable in, even in the events of 2020. Just taking some time to stop and laugh is incredibly important. The other day, I spent half the day just looking up music videos, and my students were asking me to play more, and talked about the things that made them laugh and smile. This time out of the stresses of school is just as important as the schoolwork itself. If I asked the students to continue working all the time, they would never come in. They know I have authority in the classroom and they show respect for that, but the reason that they show respect is because I respect them and their needs as well. Often those needs are just to relax and not have to act like an adult for a few hours a day. They need time to be a kid in this stressful world that they're living in. You can even see that the students have learned to implement effective social distancing techniques. But that's also where the problems arise. There are problems, for instance, the brief crossover when leaving their desks. Also, occasionally you have to demonstrate to a student how to effectively social distance. But even that causes them to think outside the box, like how they use my secondary whiteboard that I always forget about anyway. As for the train of thought that I'm using while going through the day, hopefully some of my thoughts made sense and the descriptions of why I teach like I do. I'm up for critique and will try to implement anything that could possibly be an improvement. All I can say is hopefully this video can help someone or inspire them to discuss my techniques, so I'll continue to refine them and eventually share my experience later on in some text. And as always, thanks for letting me teach you. I'll see you next time.